Good afternoon. My name is Damien Ishmael Ferrum Conato. Welcome to Lecture 7 about restorative justice in criminal justice. This is the primary text for the course. During the lecture, you're welcome to take the best notes because there will be a 10-question fill in the blank lecture quiz at the end of the lecture. Let's begin. The world people arrogantly deny Jesus Christ's existence. On another note, they disrespect Jesus Christ's authority. Jesus' authority is the truth. Respect means to acknowledge. Nevertheless, the world has acknowledged that firearms, grenades, launchers, bombs, and missiles has not eliminated evil. Evil continues to come in our lives. Evil is greater than our greatest weapon. We cannot put a face to evil. We cannot say that white people, black people, Jewish people, Arab people, other Asian people, or Latino people are evil. Any one of us can carry out evil. Evil is a spirit. A spirit is energy. Energy is power. Evil is a power. Power is an ability. Evil is an ability that manifests itself in spoken words, actions, and ways. However, good is more powerful than evil. Good is a spirit. Good is energy. Good is power. Good is an ability to love people. Good is love, but evil is hatred. However, not many people believe in love as a defense against hatred. Love is acceptance, but hatred is rejection. Unforgiveness leads to hatred. For example, some white people don't forgive certain black people of crimes against their family members, neighbors, or themselves, so they develop prejudice against all black people. On the other hand, some black people don't forgive certain white people of crimes against their family members, neighbors, or themselves, so they develop prejudice against all white people. Currently, most people, even most black people, have developed prejudice against all black men for the offenses of some black men against their family members, neighbors, or themselves. Forgiveness leads to reparations or restorative justice, but forgiveness is a voluntary act. Forgiveness leads to reparations or restorative justice, but forgiveness is a voluntary act. A person cannot make peace with another person without forgiveness. Some unforgiveness is based on lies from some people that plan to sow discord and stir mischief between other people. As long as we fight one another, we don't progress. Fania Davis, 2019 wrote, open quote, until we engage in a collective process to face and transform this pain, we will perpetually reenact it, close quote, pages 73 and 74. Anger causes discomfort as it builds within us. In addition, anger causes discomfort as it goes to other people in words or actions. Disease is a comfort. Diseases destroy the body. Diseases destroy not only one body but also a whole society. Anger is excessive energy. We keep anger submissive with love. If we love ourselves, we don't offend ourselves. If we love other people, we don't offend other people. Every deadly force against African Americans is not illegal. To the contrary, Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, a crucial manifestation of racial terror today is lethal police violence against African Americans, close quote, page 74. However, when an African American, for example, shoots at a police officer to avoid arrest, the police officer has a right to use deadly force also against the suspect to stop the threat. Some police officers are corrupt. Some police officers are corrupt, but the government does not need to dismantle every law enforcement agency to put civilians' defense in their open quote hands, close quote. If this happens, another civil war and genocide follows. Despite certain research, black children, do not put yourself in deadly situations with police officers. To the contrary, Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, recent research finds that black teens are 21 times more likely to be killed by police than white teens, close quote, page 74. Music becomes some people's intoxicant. For instance, some songs by Tupac Shakur put police officers and young black males on a battleground against one another. Therefore, some young black males receive this spirit from Shakur to hype themselves for the battle and immobilize fears of officers' deadly force against them. These young black males commit crimes to instigate these situations with police officers. Most people deny Jesus Christ and follow the spirit of Antichrist, but they believe in the truth to save them in a dying hour. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, I believe truth processes are our best hope, close quote, page 75. One of Jesus Christ's apostles, probably Philip, wrote, open quote, at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow and every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God the Father. Close quote. We waste time to solve our problems without the truth. In saying this, we bring unnecessary frustration on us. We try to prove that the truth is a lie. However, in our rebellions, We prove that the truth stands forever. Some people believe they can kill the truth. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, the earliest truth commissions in the mid-1970s were fact-finding, non-judicial bodies that sought to unearth buried truths about massive human rights violations, past and ongoing, particularly in Africa and Latin America, close quote, page 75. People that believe they can kill the truth follow Satan. Hence, they deceive themselves to believe they are above the law. They appear that the consequences for violation of the laws have no effect on them. They appear that the consequences for violations of the laws have no effect on them. If the law has no effect on a person, they offend other people at will. Thus, incarceration should be their destiny. In order to improve race relations in the United States of America, we must be willing to understand and accept unpopular truths. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, the commission was mandated to investigate human rights abuses from 1960 to 1994 and create public spaces where apartheid victims' voices were elevated, heard, and validated. Close quote. Page 76. Some elderly people said, open quote, the truth hurts, close quote. Other elderly people said, open quote, the truth doesn't have to be pretty, close quote. However, the truth's beauty is in its righteousness. When we perform tasks by the truth, we prosper. When we prosper, we build one another up as we build ourselves up. Some governments are against reparations. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, the government failed to Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, the government failed to meaningfully implement reparations, close quote, page 76. Reparations mean to restore. Reparations are ministries of God through Jesus Christ. God is higher than the world's governments. On the other hand, in the United States of America, the open quote people close quote, we make the government. It does not profit us to refuse opportunities to restore ourselves in relationships with other people in goodness. If we don't use the initiatives to restore ourselves, we self-destruct. If we don't use the initiatives to restore ourselves, we self-destruct. If we don't use the initiatives to restore our communities, it becomes destroyed. Personal and social responsibilities are necessary for the survival of the human race. To the contrary, some governments are different from other governments, so they support reparations. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, in addition to concerns with the limitations above, the Centric South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission was a top-down, government-initiated process, and South Africa was a nation in transition to Western democracy from apartheid. Close quote. Page 77. Government is not our enemy. Government is not evil. Some people abuse their authorities in government to oppress other people. Yet, this is not a justifiable reason to actively overthrow governments in the world. When some people overthrow governments, families break up, the congregations of churches are misled, and established nations become stateless. When some people overthrow governments, families break up, the congregations of churches are misled, and established nations become stateless. It is Satan's plan to use us to attack governments. Therefore, don't follow Satan but follow love. Some black people become ashamed of who they are because other people criticize them. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, over a period of 100 years, Aboriginal children were forcibly removed from their homes and placed in Indian residential schools where they were punished for honoring their languages and traditions and subjected to unrelenting physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. Close quote. Page 77. The criticisms for being a black person have caused some black people to hate themselves and other black people. Therefore, some black people commit suicide or homicide. In addition, some black people use various measures to change their appearances to resemble white people's. Also, some black people dissociate themselves from other black people. Hence, they relocate from other black people that unconditionally love them into a neighborhood where other people love them only because they keep certain status and valuable material possessions. Moreover, some black people receive white supremacy, the spirit of their oppressors, into them, so they can exalt themselves over other black people, identify with the oppressors, and oppress other black people. Black and white people should not allow some government officials to deny them reparations. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, though city officials refused to sanction their process, community members formed a grassroots commission that united survivors, police, and former Klansmen and Nazis to give public testimony. Close quote. Page 78. We give government officials God's authority over us. To the contrary, government officials should be agents of God. To the contrary, government officials should be agents of God. We don't need the government's authorizations to forgive one another. We don't need the government's authorization to love one another. We are built to love one another as we love ourselves. Black community leaders, you don't need to fight the government to have reparations for your communities. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, In 2012, 5 Wabanaki tribal chiefs and Maine's governor signed on to the MWTRC, Maine Wabanaki Truth and Reconciliation Commission, to redress human rights abuses stemming from the state child welfare system's forced assimilation of indigenous children. Close quote, pages 78 and 79. For example, President Lyndon Baines Johnson agreed to communicate about civil rights expansion to non-white people with Dr. For example, President Lyndon Baines Johnson agreed to communicate about civil rights expansion to non-white people, such as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the United States of America. To the contrary, President Johnson did not have that relationship with the Black Panthers Party or even the Nation of Islam. If we appear hostile and ready to fight other people, they refuse to communicate with us. They separate from us and allow us to retain this hostility to fight and even kill one another. We cannot learn great ideas from other people if we fight them. Everybody suffers from racism. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, they led ceremonies and supported community trauma healing, close quote, page 79. Racism is an unjust theology. Racists are students of racism. Racists put some races above other races. Racists do this voluntarily or involuntarily. Some black people are racist against black people when they believe white people are superior to black people. Racism hurts everybody because racists break the bonds that connect them to other people. For instance, we feel lots of pain if we cut one of our legs from our bodies. The entire body loses lots of blood and goes into shock. Hence, human society becomes weak and at the point of extinction from the effects of racism. In order to have a restorative justice society, we must allow reparations to rule us. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, the final report recommended a host of systemic reforms, including reform in the state child welfare system, tribal courts, and native foster care services. Close quote. Page 79. Seeking revenge on our enemies stops reparations. Forgiveness of our enemies' spirits allows us to understand and accept them without their offenses. In saying this, forgiveness allows us to love our enemies in spite of their offenses against us. The world knows about reparations. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, these 4 examples demonstrate that over time and across continents, TRC's Truth Reconciliation Commissions have evolved to emphasize reconciliation and truth, bottom-up and top-down orientations, and systemic and interpersonal transformation. Close quote. Page 79. Slavery is a universal custom. Some white people were slaves in Europe, and some black people were slaves in Africa. Slaves lose a common idea in freedom. In addition, slaves lose other things. During slavery, slaves desire to regain what they lose. Hence, slaves desire reparations. Reparations are goals to white slaves as it is a goal to black slaves. The truth directs us to reparations. The truth directs us to reparations. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, no roadmaps exist, but there are signposts to guide the creation of a U.S. truth process, close quote, page 80. Justice is the application of the truth. When we use just ideas with other people, we receive what we lose. For example, another person steals some money from his or her neighbor. The neighbor uses a just means, seeing the other person as he or she. The neighbor uses a just means, seeing the other person as he or she sees himself or herself, to get his or her money back. Therefore, the neighbor does not kill the other person. The neighbor does not hurt the other person. The neighbor does not hurt the other person. The neighbor does not steal from the other person or rob the other person. However, the neighbor values the other person above money and other things. In addition, the neighbor avoids a violent, bloody, deadly conflict with the other person and incarceration, and gives himself or herself other opportunities to receive more money and greater possessions. We must come together on a common love to have reparations. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, freedom is found not in separation from, but rather in community with one another, close quote. However, every parent does not teach their children to love other people as they love themselves. Every child does not receive lessons about unconditional love. Some children allow other foolish people to influence them to, open quote, get it back in blood, close quote. However, other foolish people won't pay for the child's legal defense or medical bills. Other foolish people won't visit the child in prisons and hospitals. Other foolish people won't allow the child to share their burdens with them. Foolish people are not our friends. Hence, foolish people don't believe in love. Recipients of injustices can become independent, responsible, law-abiding citizens. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, the principle of subsidiarity holds that those directly impacted by an offense should have decision-making powers about their lives. Decisions should be made at the lowest levels, rather than by a central authority, close quote, page 80. Too many black people use racism as an excuse or reason for their criminal lifestyles. Racism is a very powerful spirit. It influences many people to believe they are inferior to other people. However, when you are so low that you look down to the ground, understand that you are blessed because you are not in it. As long as you have life, you have the power to become. The truth is available for black and white people to receive. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, in the United States, I propose a hybrid model akin to that of the main Wabanaki TRC, where a community-based organization with a history of working with survivors of police violence conceptualizes, initiates, and implements the truth process. Close quote. Page 81. The truth favors nobody. We cannot give anything to the truth, so it makes us appear innocent or right. We cannot give anything to the truth, so it makes us appear innocent or right. We cannot exalt or demote the truth. The truth does not originate from us. The truth made us. We were designed justly. However, diseases, other sicknesses, disorders, impediments, and injuries take away our justice. We cannot fight these adversaries in the same way we fight other people. We cannot fight these adversaries in the same way we fight other people. Submission to the truth makes us whole again. Black people, some police officers have committed themselves to help us. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, these hubs could geographically track and build on the work of police departments already actively engaged in police and community repair and reconciliation efforts. Close quote. Page 81. The criminal element is our enemy. Drug dealers sell us products so we can destroy one another and ourselves. Pimps don't care about their prostitutes and us. They sell their prostitutes to us even though some of them are infected with transmittable diseases. Pimps contribute to the destruction of black communities. It is legal for independent, responsible adults to purchase firearms. However, beware of Satan's plan to possess people with firearms and later enter into their minds so they intend to murder one another and themselves. However, beware of Satan's plan to possess people with firearms and later enter into their minds so they intend to murder one another and themselves. We need to communicate with one another from logic instead of foolishness. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, these spaces would also serve as sites for dialogical encounters between police representatives and families who have lost loved ones to police violence, where harmed persons engage in public truth-telling and responsible persons take active responsibility to repair wrongdoing. Close quote. Page 82. Many homicides that involve black people stem from arguments. Arguments are not forms of communication. The root pronunciation in communication is commune. In saying this, we need to understand the same issue even from different points of view. For example, if a black person understands racism in an incident, but a white person denies racism in this incident, There is no possibility for communication. Their exchanges result in arguments, fights, and worse encounters. Unity in the truth empowers us to overcome racism. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, a national resource center could serve the local hubs by networking them and disseminating local discoveries, close quote, page 82. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, a national resource center could serve the local hubs by networking them and disseminating local discoveries, close quote, page 82. Racism is a set of lies. Racism comes from Satan, open quote, the father of lies, close quote. Holy Bible, St. John. The truth solves problems when we apply it to our problems. Lies don't solve problems. It leaves us to continue to live with the problems. However, racism has become not a problem anymore to some people. They have adjusted their focus to agree with racism. Some white people have adjusted their focus to agree they are superior to other people. Some black people have adjusted their focus to agree they are inferior to white people. Consequently, some black people don't try to succeed past their expectations and they fight other black people to stop their success. Black people, black militant organizations lead us to destruction if we allow them to plan our reparations movement. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, steps need to be taken, however, to mitigate the risk of co-optation and to ensure political autonomy, close quote, page 83. Some predominantly black organizations are secretly planning to violently overthrow the United States government. Many black people, mainly young black people, will never see their reparations because they reject themselves to become like the former oppressors and receive their status and wealth. Nevertheless, either the United States military neutralizes them or other black people neutralize them. To clarify, when these militants receive the conquering spirit of the former oppressors, to receive alleged reparations, they exalt themselves above other black people. To clarify, when these militants receive the conquering spirit of the former oppressors to receive alleged reparations, they exalt themselves above other black people. If they succeed to create another nation inside the United States of America, the oppressor spirit in them leads them to believe other black people are inferior to them. It should be our expectations to live in peace with other people. It should be our expectations to live in peace with other people. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, healthy social relationships and social structures are the goals, close quote, page 83. If we follow the Prince of Peace, we expect peace within ourselves and with other people. To the contrary, Many people don't expect peace with other people. They expect to fight other people. This expectation provokes them to go on the offensive and, open quote, throw the first punch, close quote. Therefore, they destroy the potential for any meaningful communication and relationship with other people. Beware of some preachers and teachers that tell you other people are your enemies and are trying to harm you. These preachers don't tell you to love your enemies and rise above violence with peace. These preachers don't tell you to love your enemies and rise above violence with peace. A prayer life assists us with personal reparations. Davis 2019 wrote, this might entail developing individual mind-body awareness practices such as meditation or yoga to hone the capacity to identify and interrupt internal racist responses in the moment they arise. Close quote. Page 83. Prayer is humility. Therefore, a prayer life is a life in submission to a person, place, thing, idea, or condition. Everybody has a prayer life. However, some people believe they submit to nothing. Hence, they believe they are God. Nonetheless, these people follow lies. Yet, they will submit to the truth. Some black people receive the pressures from the world and, open quote, turn on themselves, close quote. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, at the intragroup level, the hubs could engage in collective work related to whiteness, as in the whiteness study circles mentioned above, and internalized oppression involving circles for people of color. Close quote. Page 84. The world holds more pressure than the human body holds. Some people try to bear the world's burdens because they see themselves as higher than they are. This is idolatry. They appear righteous, but they are wrong. To the contrary, other people put their burdens on certain people and force them to bear it because other people see certain people as scapegoats. Other people fail to accept their responsibilities for the world's injustice. The lack of personal responsibility temporarily delivers a guilty person, but it permanently injures the other person that the guilty person forces to bear his or her burdens. If black and white people listen to one another, we can discover the solution to racism. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, hubs could also offer David 2019 wrote, open quote, hubs could also offer intergroup level circle processes involving community members who are white and others who are persons of color to engage in cross-racial dialogue. Close quote. Page 84. Media is a third party that often gives false information to, open quote, stir mischief, close quote, and, open quote, sow discord, close quote, between black and white people. Some politicians or political groups use media to report these stories in order to control private citizens with polarizations. Elderly people said, open quote, a half-truth is a whole lie, close quote. Media mix some truth with lies to make the public lose control of their minds and vulnerable to submit to other people's demands. Most people trust the mainstream media to give them accurate information. However, nevertheless, media is a tool that restorative justice activists use to prepare environments where different people can enjoy peace with one another. Davis 2019 wrote, open quote, the intentionality of bringing diverse and sometimes polarized communities together, both on stage and in the audience, serves to create an inclusive space for those impacted by police violence, including law enforcement representatives, in which to share their stories and engage in transformational dialogue. Close quote, page 85. To illustrate, some media producers make fictional shows that depict people of various backgrounds and professions relating to one another to solve a problem or problems. The audience see themselves in the characters because they represent their groups. These characters model how various people come together to overcome a divisive issue instead of allowing the divisive issue to overcome them. These characters model how various people come together to overcome a divisive issue instead of allowing the divisive issue to overcome them. In addition, teachers can use role-play scenarios to explain valuable lessons to students. Now, this concludes the lecture. Now we will have our lecture quiz. These are the questions to the lecture quiz. I'm going to read it to you. Lecture quiz. Question 1. A person cannot make peace with another person without blank. Question 2. If we blank other people, we don't offend other people. Question 3. Every deadly force against African Americans is not blank. Question 4. Despite certain research, black children do not put yourself in blank with police officers. Question 5. We waste time to solve our problems without the blank. Question 6. Nevertheless, blank is a tool that restorative justice activists use to prepare environments where different people can enjoy peace with one another. Question 7. If black and white people listen to one another, we can discover the solution to blank. Question 8. Some black people receive the pressures from the world and open quote, blank, close quote. Question 9. Prayer is blank. Question 10. It should be our expectations to live in blank with other people. Now, this is your lecture quiz. I said earlier and I say it again. The answers to this quiz is not blank. Thank you for listening to this lecture and completing the quiz. Stand by for the final lecture of this course. Lecture 8. Have a blessed day.